Yeah,
kidding.
that's
Totally
we're running we're running a contest. If you are in the room right now, then you've just won a loaf of bread from Michael. So
I can't guarantee it's good, but it'll be made with love.
So we're going to grow as a team. We're going to, take a strength in numbers approach. Maybe it's hard for one of us to grow our audience, but maybe together, by promoting each other, by helping each other, we can grow as a unit under the Story Hangar banner.
great. Okay.
Welcome to Story Hangar. We are independent documentary podcasters, telling stories that engage, that entertain, that make a difference. We are Story Hangar.
Welcoming everybody that's coming in. Thank you so much for coming out to the launch of Story Hangar. We have 4 excellent podcasts. We're going to hear more about them. We're going to hear from our founder, Bob Harkins, and then we're going to get to talk to all 4 of our podcasters about their great stories. First up is a podcast called The Brave Dutch. It's the work of actor, entrepreneur, and master storyteller Rhes Low Jr. And I thought
specifically him. If it weren't for the Dutch people, I wouldn't exist. My father wouldn't have existed. My whole family would not exist. I've literally run into people from the Netherlands and in like Chicago or different places, and literally just kind of cried with them because I'm like so grateful. And my grandfather infused that through this story. I didn't know him well. He died when I was very young, but infused that love of and respect for the Dutch people throughout inside me and my family. And so I take his manuscript and I tell the story in his words by literally pretending I'm him in that room in Paris, telling the story to some buddies. People listen to it by sitting by the fireplace, having a glass of wine. I don't have the fire going, but now that is not how people listen to podcasts. I'm very, very aware of that. I don't listen to podcasts that way, but just the idea helped inform the kind of radio show nature of the documentary.
from World War II, we go to the modern world. Story Hangar takes you deep into the mountains of the American West for a modern day treasure hunt.
Yeah, so I first heard about this art dealer, Forrest Fenn, and what he claims to be a treasure hunt from a friend of mine who I backpack with. And essentially I found out, hey, there's this guy who claims that he wrote a poem where if you follow his clues in a 6 stanza long poem, you can find a treasure worth $2 million. But the more I dug and learned more about the story and kind of got a feel for everything, I had to know more about the man behind the treasure, because frankly, it's much more of an interesting story.
And what's it like to have a podcast going, then all of a sudden it's in national news?
It's great. You feel, you're like, oh wow, this really was an interesting story. I'm not just lying to myself. I think the hardest part for me was convincing some of our searchers to actually talk with us on the record. A lot of them were really either scared to share the story or embarrassed to admit that they had gone looking for the treasure, or were worried that we would steal.
I think you broke up a little bit again there, but it sounded like you were saying that people were worried that you might be using their information to go steal their treasure.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
They were worried about us stealing their find, as they call it. So convincing them to talk to us amidst that preoccupation was probably our biggest hurdle.
Okay. There's an adage in journalism to remove yourself from the pack. And our next podcaster, Janice Cantieri, took this to the extreme when she caught a ride on a cargo ship to Banaba Island in the Pacific Ocean. She left with an amazing story and an assignment from the Bannerman people to locate a skull that had been removed. Fulbright National Geographic fellow Janice Cantieri tells this story in Remains.
Back in 2016, I was traveling out to Banaba Island, which is a really remote island in the Central Pacific. And I was going there to tell stories about how the community maintained their culture and resilience, even though there was 80 years of strip mining by the British Phosphate Commission. And I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks, but the cargo ship didn't come back. And this island is totally off the grid. And I was stuck there for about 2 months and didn't have anything better to do but really get to know everyone on the island and learn all about their history and culture. And while I was there, I was asked by the island's Council of Elders to find and return a skull that was taken from the island about 100 years ago. And it's a skull.
As you were reporting this story, you were missing, right? I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was totally off the grid for about 2 months, and I was having a great time. I was playing Scrabble with people, and learning all these legends, and I was having a really good time. And I came back on the grid and had over 1,000 emails, and those were emails from people in the embassy, people in the State Department, and I had a bunch of messages from my parents who were not so happy. It definitely made them worry, and they were a few days away from hiring a private investigator to come track me down because they thought that I got lost at sea. So
this year, Bob shares a more personal story about an everyday sportsman, his father, Tim Harkins. So this is the promo for Rhes Sports.
To the end. And so I have a sports podcast, and I thought I could tell my dad's story and how sports kind of informed the man he was in so many ways. And I wanted to kind of do that as a tribute to him.
And that kind of ties into what your vision is for Story Hangar, right? Tell us about that, the idea of telling personal stories.
Yeah, telling personal stories that engage. And, it's funny because as I've met Rhes and Janice and Michael here, I've discovered that there are so many different ways to tell an engaging story. We all have a different skill set. We all are telling different stories in different ways. But the common thread that binds us all, I think, is one, the passion for the medium, and two, the passion for storytelling and for sharing these great stories that do engage.
And check
Thank you,
this
everybody.
out. Thank you, Rhes and Michael and Janice. These are all great stories, and I encourage everyone here to check them out and to share them.